HOA Enforcement, open up now! The voice cut through the quiet of the morning like a whip crack. It was deep, commanding, too aggressive for anything involving flower beds or mailbox paint. Outside, on the porch of 48 Willow Creek Lane, 3 men stood in matching navy blue tactical jackets, the words HOA Enforcement stamped in bold white letters across their backs. Big block letters, made to be read from halfway down the street. But these men weren't holding clipboards. They weren't smiling politely with pamphlets in hand. Instead, they carried tactical belts, heavy boots, and short-barreled rifles slung across their chests. Their mirrored sunglasses reflected the sun and the quiet neighborhood like cold steel. Inside, Lisa Walker sat in her wheelchair near the front window. The morning light caught in her hazel eyes, sharpening them. She'd worn uniforms herself, once a Navy SEAL, always a SEAL, but that was before Afghanistan, before the roadside IED that took her legs but left her mind as sharp as ever. The air inside was warm with the smell of brewing coffee. A faint gurgle from the kitchen drip machine carried on, completely at odds with the scene outside. At the dining table, 2 tall, broad-shouldered men froze mid-conversation. Jack and Matt Walker, Lisa's younger twin brothers, exchanged a look. It was a look honed over years of shared danger. This is not right. Matt stood first, his movement slow, deliberate. Jack shifted, putting himself instinctively between Lisa and the door. Another bang shook the wood, rattling the glass in its frame. "Last warning, open the door or we'll take it down." Lisa's voice was level. "Stay back from the door, both of you." They didn't listen, not out of disobedience, but instinct. SEAL instinct ran deep in this family. The twins had seen enough of the world to know. Danger rarely announced itself so loudly unless it was ready to act. Through the frosted glass, the blurry outline of a large figure loomed. The sunlight caught the bold white letters on his back. To an average homeowner, this would look official enough. To the Walkers, it screamed costume. Jack raised his voice. "This is private property. State your business or leave." "Save it," came the reply, sharp and impatient. "You've got HOA violations stacking up. We're here to enforce compliance." Lisa's brow furrowed. She had lived here over 10 years. Yes, the HOA had its rules, some petty, some reasonable, but they didn't send armed men to collect late landscaping fees. This was intimidation. This was theater. Her voice cut back, strong. "Identify yourselves, names, badges, and your HOA president's name, now." No answer, just the sound of boots shifting on wood. Then, a distinct click, the metallic sound of a rifle's safety flicking off. Jack moved toward the side window. He peeled back the curtain just an inch. Parked in the driveway was a black SUV, engine idling, tinted windows. No municipal plates, no HOA decals. Matt's jaw tightened. "Lisa, those aren't HOA." The doorknob rattled. The voice outside barked, "Step away from the door, now." Lisa's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Her tone was cool, steady. "You're trespassing. Leave in 10 seconds or I call the sheriff's office." The man outside chuckled, a low, humorless sound. "Go ahead." It wasn't the laugh of someone worried about the law. The twins' breathing slowed, deliberate. Their shoulders relaxed slightly, the way fighters relax right before a strike. The porch boards creaked under shifting boots. The black SUV's exhaust puffed in the still air. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked twice and fell silent. Then, a deafening crash. The doorframe exploded inward, the deadbolt splintering wood. Daylight poured in behind 3 armed silhouettes in that false authority blue. Jack's voice boomed, "Wrong house." The door hadn't just opened, it had been obliterated. The hinges groaned, the frame split, and the morning air rushed in with the metallic scent of gun oil. 3 men stepped across the threshold, boots striking the hardwood with a deliberate heaviness. The sun caught the bold HOA enforcement letters across their backs, but up close, the stitching was uneven. Cheap work on expensive jackets. Their rifles hung low, but ready, each man's trigger finger resting just beside the guard. Lisa's wheelchair sat dead center in the living room, framed by the window light. She didn't move. Her posture was perfect, shoulders back, chin level, eyes locked on the intruders. Years of training had stripped away the human instinct to flinch. Jack moved first. He stepped forward, blocking her from view, his 6'2" frame casting a long shadow across the room. "You've got about 2 seconds to explain yourselves," he said, voice deep and steady. The lead man, a barrel-chested brute with a shaved head, smirked. "You've been ignoring notices. Trash cans left out, lawn over 3 inches, Christmas lights past January. We enforce the rules around here." Matt's brow creased, a slow, dangerous expression. With rifles, the smirk didn't fade. "Sometimes people need persuasion." From her chair, Lisa's voice was ice. "You're not here for trash cans?" The lead man's eyes flicked to her, measuring. "Lady, I don't need to explain myself." Jack's gaze shifted. His seal-trained eyes noted everything. The subtle bulge under the man's jacket at his left hip, the military-style watch, the faint tattoo half hidden under a glove cuff. Not HOA, not even close. Matt angled slightly, cutting off the side path toward the kitchen. The twins' positioning was subtle but deliberate. They were funneling the intruders into the narrowest part of the room. The second man, tall and lean, scanned the house with restless eyes. "Where's your compliance paperwork?" "We'll need to take a look." Lisa's hand inched toward the armrest control. The faint whir of her wheelchair's motor broke the tension for just a heartbeat. "And I'll need to see your IDs." The tall man's lips curled. "You really think you're in a position to—" Click. It wasn't the sound of a rifle safety this time. It was the sound of Matt's thumb flicking open the retention strap on the knife sheath at his belt. The small motion was casual, almost lazy, but his eyes never left the men. The third intruder, stocky, jittery, shifted his weight. His right hand twitched toward his rifle. Jack's tone dropped an octave. "Don't!" For a moment, the room felt like it was holding its breath. Outside, the low idle of the black SUV continued, its muffled engine growl a reminder that more trouble waited beyond the porch. Lisa broke the silence. "You've got one last chance to walk out of my house. After that, you'll be explaining yourselves to the sheriff's deputies." The lead man laughed, loud, forced, like a bully trying to hold his ground. "We are the law in this neighborhood." That was the wrong thing to say. Jack took a slow step forward, closing the distance by half. His voice was almost conversational, but there was steel under every syllable. "You're standing in a SEAL's house, 2 of them actually, and you're threatening our sister. Now, what do you think happens next?" The tall man's jaw worked, but no words came. The stocky one swallowed hard. Even the lead man's smirk faltered just enough to show a flicker of doubt. Matt's stance shifted, knees soft, weight balanced. He didn't have to say a word. Everything about him said, "We've been here before, and you won't like how it ends." A faint breeze from the open doorway stirred the curtain. Somewhere outside, the SUV's engine revved, short, sharp, like a signal. Lisa's voice cut through again, calm but razor sharp. "You hear that? That's your ride getting nervous. I suggest you take the hint." The 3 intruders exchanged quick glances. The lead man's eyes narrowed. "We'll be back." Jack smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "We'll be waiting." They backed toward the doorway, rifles angled down but ready, and stepped into the bright sunlight. The SUV's rear door swung open. They climbed in without another word, and the vehicle rolled slowly down the street, tires crunching over the gravel shoulder. Inside, the silence was thick. Matt shut the shattered door as best he could, the frame hanging crooked. Lisa exhaled slowly. "They're testing us. Next time, it won't be just talk." Jack nodded once. "Next time, we'll be ready." The black SUV rolled down the street, its dark-tinted windows swallowing the morning sun. The hum of its engine faded, replaced by the low hiss of the coastal wind. But in Jack's mind, the sound hadn't left. It was a threat with an exhaust pipe. Matt pulled his phone from his pocket and snapped a quick photo through the cracked doorway. License plate, make, model. He zoomed in, frowning. No front plate, rear plate looks off. Probably stolen. Lisa spun her wheelchair toward the small desk in the corner where her laptop sat. She was already logging in before Jack even turned around. "I'll run it through the county database," she said. "If they're dumb enough to use a real plate, we'll know." Jack crouched beside the shattered doorframe, running his fingertips over the splintered wood. "They didn't knock this down just to scare us. This was a probe." Matt nodded. "Testing response time, seeing who's home, and they didn't like what they found." From the street, a faint glint caught Jack's attention. He stood, stepping outside onto the porch. Across the road, parked under the shade of a sycamore tree, sat a silver sedan. The driver's silhouette shifted slightly, too deliberate to be casual. Jack tilted his head toward Matt without taking his eyes off the car. "We've got company." Matt stepped up beside him, scanning the street. Could be a lookout, could be backup. His tone was flat, but his right hand rested near the concealed holster at his hip. Inside, Lisa's voice called out, "Plate's not in the system, total ghost." The silver sedan's engine coughed to life. It rolled slowly past the house. The driver's face hidden behind large sunglasses. But Jack caught a detail, the faint white reflection of an earpiece wire curling into the man's collar. "They're coordinated," Jack murmured. "Not HOA, not even wannabe cops. This is organized." Matt's jaw tightened. "Which means someone's paying them." Lisa wheeled to the doorway, eyes sharp. "I know someone who might recognize them. Give me that photo." She took Matt's phone, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "If they've hit anyone else in the county, it'll be in the reports." Jack's attention shifted back to the road. "We need eyes in the neighborhood. If they're casing houses, we'll see a pattern." Matt cracked a faint grin. "Already on it." He pulled a small black case from his backpack. Inside were 2 compact drones, silent, fast, and with enough camera resolution to read a business card from 50 yards. Within minutes, one drone was airborne, drifting high above the tree line. The other zipped low between rooftops, its camera feeding live video to Matt's phone. From the screen, they watched the black SUV parked 2 blocks away. The 3 men got out, joined by a 4th who'd been waiting. They clustered around the tailgate, talking. One of them pulled a large rolled-up paper from a tube. Matt froze the feed and zoomed in. Blueprints. Lisa leaned over the screen. "That's the neighborhood plan, and that is our house." The paper was marked with red circles, 4 houses in total, all on the same street. Jack recognized one immediately. Mrs. Carter's place, 3 doors down. Widowed, late 70s, always alone. "They're targeting the vulnerable," Jack said, voice low. Lisa's expression darkened. "They think I'm on that list." The SUV crew loaded the blueprints back into the tube, then split. 2 got into the SUV, the other 2 into the silver sedan. Both vehicles rolled off in opposite directions. Matt brought the drone back, landing it silently on the porch. "They'll be back, but not tonight. They'll wait for the right moment." Jack nodded. "Then we'll give them a moment they're not ready for." Lisa's voice was calm, but there was steel under it. "You're thinking counterattack." "I'm thinking," Jack said, meeting her gaze, "we make them wish they'd never picked this street." Outside, the wind shifted, carrying with it the smell of salt water and something else, something faintly metallic. Trouble was in the air, and the twins could feel it. The house was quiet now, but it wasn't peace. It was the stillness before a storm. Jack stood in the kitchen, staring at the map Lisa had pulled up on her laptop. The 4 red-circled houses glowed on the screen like open wounds. "They're not random hits," Lisa said, pointing at the cluster. "Look, each one's at the end of a street with limited exits. Easy to block off." Matt leaned against the counter, sipping cold coffee like it was whiskey. "They want control, in and out before anyone can call for help. Textbook intimidation op." Jack's eyes narrowed. "Or extraction. If they want something from inside, they'll isolate the target first." Lisa tapped her screen. "Mrs. Carter's alone, no family nearby. Then there's the Petersons. He's on oxygen. She's recovering from surgery. And the Millers, out of town until next week. That leaves me." The room went still for a beat. "You're bait," Matt said, almost approvingly. Lisa's chin lifted. "I'm also a witness. They won't leave me breathing if I see too much." Jack's hand closed into a fist on the table. "Not happening." He turned to his brother. "We prepped the house. Cameras inside and out. Motion sensors. Silent alarms to our phones." Matt smirked. "And maybe a few surprises they won't see coming." From the hall closet, they dragged out 2 battered duffel bags, gear from another life. Matt unzipped his and pulled out a compact night vision headset, a pair of tactical gloves, and a roll of black duct tape. Jack's bag revealed a collapsible grappling hook, a portable jammer, and something that looked suspiciously like a smoke grenade. Lisa raised an eyebrow. "I'm guessing these aren't standard HOA-approved items." "Let's just say," Matt replied, "the Navy never took them back." While Lisa monitored neighborhood security cameras through her laptop, The twins moved through the house with military precision. Jack installed small pinhole cameras under the porch eaves and inside the hallway light fixtures. Matt threaded thin fishing line across the side yard, at shin height, invisible in the dark. "Trip line?" Lisa asked when she saw him. "Trip and alert," Matt said. "They hit it, we know exactly where they are, and they won't know why they fell on their face." In the backyard, Jack tested the jammer. A low hum filled the air for a second, and every phone in range dropped a signal. 60-foot radius, he said, perfect for cutting their comms if they try to coordinate. By dusk, the place was a fortress disguised as a quiet suburban home. Dinner was eaten in silence, the clink of forks on plates the only sound. Outside, the streetlights flickered on one by one, casting long shadows across the pavement. Jack sat at the table, cleaning the action on his sidearm. "When they come back, they'll expect an easy grab. We give them noise, confusion, and nowhere to hide." Matt's grin was wolfish. "I vote we let them step inside before we shut the door behind them." Lisa looked between them, a flicker of unease in her eyes. "Just don't do anything that puts you in jail." "Lisa," Jack said, his voice low but steady, "these guys aren't calling the cops if we fight back. They're not supposed to exist." For a moment, the three of them sat together in the dim kitchen, the air heavy with unspoken truths. Jack's mind drifted briefly. Desert nights under black skies, the smell of gun oil, the weight of silence before a mission. He'd thought those days were behind him. He'd been wrong. A vibration on Lisa's laptop snapped him back. She swiveled the screen. "Look at this. Corner of Maple and 3rd, silver sedan, parked for over an hour. Same guy with the earpiece." Matt pushed back his chair. "They're already here." Jack stood, sliding his holster into place. "Then let's welcome them properly." Outside, the coastal wind had picked up, carrying the faint tang of rain. Somewhere in the darkness, engines idled, and the street seemed to hold its breath. The night had settled deep over the neighborhood, wrapping the streets in a heavy, expectant silence. In Lisa's living room, the only light came from a single lamp near the couch, soft enough to look casual, bright enough to silhouette a figure for anyone watching from outside. Lisa sat there, book in hand, but her eyes weren't on the pages. She was listening, counting the seconds between each distant car passing by. Jack and Matt were shadows in the hall, out of sight from the windows, each with an earpiece linked to Lisa's phone feed. Every camera they had planted was streaming silently to their devices. At 10:43 p.m., the first alert blinked onto Jack's screen, side yard motion sensor. Matt's whisper cut through the earpiece. "They're here." Lisa's fingers tightened around the book. "Where?" Jack scanned the feed. A dark figure in a blue jacket, bold white letters across the back. HOA Enforcement was crouched near the side fence, a small flashlight between his teeth. "Left perimeter," Jack murmured. "Moving slow." Matt checked another camera. 2 more at the rear fence. Same jackets. "They're spreading." Lisa swallowed hard. "That's 4 total?" "5, Jack corrected, switching feeds. 1 across the street in the sedan. Driver's not moving. Outside, the wind carried the faint creak of the fence gate opening. The trip line at shin height gave the softest ting, barely audible. Matt grinned. "Got him." The camera caught it. A quick stumble, a muffled curse. The man regained his balance but glanced around nervously. Jack touched his earpiece. "Let them inside." Lisa's eyes widened. "What?" Matt leaned close to her. "We want them comfortable. We want them thinking they're in control before we flip the board." The first intruder reached the back porch and tried the handle. Locked. He pulled a thin tool from his pocket, jimmied the latch, and slid the door open an inch. Inside, Jack had already killed the kitchen lights. The man stepped in, his outline caught in the faint glow from the living room. He froze, listening. That's when the jammer kicked on. The man's earpiece crackled, then went dead. Outside, the others tried their radios. Static. Confusion spread like a ripple. The intruder took one cautious step forward, and Matt moved. Silent as a shadow, he appeared in the doorway behind the man, one arm hooking his neck, the other twisting his wrist until the lockpick clattered to the floor. A soft grunt. A shuffle of boots. Then silence again. Matt eased the man down, zip-tying his wrists before dragging him into the dark laundry room. Meanwhile, Jack slipped through the kitchen toward the side door. Another figure was halfway inside, scanning the dim hallway. Jack let him step forward, 1 step, 2, then pressed the muzzle of his sidearm to the man's ribs. "Don't move," he whispered. The man froze. Jack relieved him of his flashlight, radio, and a slim curved blade. "Now, we're going to take a little walk." By the time Lisa looked up from the couch, Matt had joined Jack, each holding an intruder by the arm. She kept her voice steady. You brought them in here." Jack's eyes were cold. "Safer in here than outside, where their friends can see." On the cameras, 2 more figures were hesitating in the yard, whispering urgently to each other. The driver in the sedan had stepped out, pacing, phone to his ear. Matt glanced at Jack. "Think they figured it out yet?" "Not until it's too late," Jack said. He looked at Lisa. "Get ready. This is just round 1. Outside, the wind rattled the branches. The remaining men began moving toward the house, more cautious now, but still coming. The trap was working. Outside, the last 3 men in blue jackets huddled near the back fence. Their voices were low, urgent. One pointed toward the porch, another toward the side gate. They had lost radio contact, 2 of their team hadn't checked in, and the driver kept pacing near the sedan, glancing over his shoulder like a man who knew trouble was close. Inside, Jack and Matt stood still, listening. They could hear the faint scrape of boots on wood, the creak of a hinge. Matt's eyes flicked toward the kitchen window. "They're splitting up," he murmured. Jack nodded. "Classic pincer. Let's break it." Lisa's pulse thudded in her ears. "You're not going out there." But they were already moving. Jack slid into the garage, slipping out the side door into the shadows of the driveway. Matt crouched low, easing through the back porch like smoke. The first intruder came from the side gate, stepping slow, scanning the yard. He held a collapsible baton in one hand, flashlight in the other. He never saw Jack until a forearm locked across his throat and yanked him backward into the dark. The baton dropped to the gravel with a dull clink. No shout, no warning, just silence. Matt, meanwhile, ghosted along the fence line. The second man was halfway to the porch when a pebble skittered across the patio. He turned toward the sound. Too late. Matt's shoulder slammed into his ribs, driving him hard against the wall. Air exploded from the man's lungs as his flashlight spun away into the grass. The third intruder, taller, broader, heard the scuffle and rushed in, but Matt pivoted, dragging the winded man into his path. They collided in a tangle of limbs, giving Matt just enough time to sweep the bigger man's legs and send him crashing onto the deck boards. From the driveway came a muffled thud as Jack secured his man with a flex cuff. He reappeared seconds later, moving fast, eyes locked on Matt's position. The 2 brothers worked without words now, just quick glances and subtle gestures. 2 decades of military training compressed into a dance of precision. The bigger man tried to rise, but Jack dropped to one knee, pinning him with an armbar while Matt zip-tied the other's wrists. The smaller one groaned, still catching his breath from the body blow. From across the street, the driver finally realized something was wrong. Very wrong. He ran toward the fence, phone in hand, shouting. Matt straightened, eyes narrowing. "He's calling for backup." Jack's voice was cold. "Not gonna happen." Before the man could reach the gate, Jack was already moving, low and fast, his boots silent on the grass. The driver barely had time to register the shadow barreling toward him before his phone was snatched clean from his grip and tossed into the gutter. Jack stepped in close, his voice a deadly whisper. "Game's over." The man froze, breathing hard, sweat cutting lines down his face. One by one, the brothers herded the captives toward the side of the house. 6 in total now, hands bound, jackets streaked with dirt, eyes wide with the realization that they'd just tangled with the wrong family. Lisa stepped out onto the porch, wheelchair gliding over the threshold. She looked at them, these so-called enforcers who'd come in the night, and let out a slow breath. Matt spoke first. "What do you want to do with them?" Jack didn't answer right away. His gaze swept the yard, the street beyond, as if weighing options not just for tonight, but for the days ahead. Finally, he looked at Lisa. "Your call." Her voice was steady now, stronger than it had been in days. "I say we make sure they don't forget this house, or this family." The wind shifted, carrying the smell of rain. Somewhere far off, thunder rolled. The night wasn't over yet. The 6 men stood in a crooked line against the side of the house, wrists bound with flex cuffs, backs pressed to the siding. Their blue jackets, once crisp with the bold white letters HOA Enforcement, were now smeared with dirt and streaked from the wet grass. Jack and Matt flanked them like sentinels, their presence alone enough to keep the group still. No shouting, no threats, just a quiet, deliberate silence that felt heavier than any barked order. Lisa rolled forward in her chair, the porch light casting her in a warm glow that contrasted sharply with the cold night. The metallic click of her wheels on the deck boards was the only sound for a few seconds. "I want to hear it from you," she began, her voice calm but cutting. "Why did you come to my house in the dark? Why didn't you knock like decent men?" The tallest of the group, still breathing hard from his earlier takedown, finally spoke. We were sent. The board," Lisa's gaze sharpened. "The board told you to trespass, to harass a disabled woman in her own home?" The man's eyes flicked to the ground. "It was just an order," Matt cut in, his voice low and steady. "Orders don't excuse bad choices. You had 6 chances to stop yourselves before you stepped onto this porch." One of the younger men shifted uneasily. "We didn't know." Jack's tone was like steel. "You didn't care to know." He stepped closer, scanning their faces one by one. "Do you have any idea who you picked a fight with?" No one answered. The tension in the air was thick enough to taste. Lisa leaned forward in her chair. "My brothers served this country. They've been to places where the law barely exists, where danger hides in every shadow, and they came home to protect me. Not from terrorists, not from criminals, but from men in matching jackets who think they can bully their way through a neighborhood." A distant rumble of thunder rolled across the sky, punctuating her words. Matt broke the silence. "Here's how this is going to go. You're going to take a message back to your bosses. Tell them this house is off limits. No more letters, no more late-night visits, no more intimidation. Or, next time, we won't be so polite." The youngest of the group swallowed hard. "Are you gonna call the cops?" Jack smirked, but there was no humor in it. "You think the sheriff would be on your side in this?" Lisa's eyes flickered with something between pride and amusement. "The sheriff is on my side." It took a moment for the words to sink in. Then several heads turned toward her, faces blanching. Jack leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. "You've been barking up the wrong tree. And now you've woken something you can't handle." He and Matt moved in unison, cutting the flex cuffs one by one, but not freeing the men from the weight of the warning that now hung over them. As each man rubbed his wrists, Matt pointed toward the street. "Leave the jackets. You walk out of here as just men, not enforcers. This uniform doesn't belong in our neighborhood anymore." Reluctantly, one by one, they shrugged out of the blue coats and let them drop onto the wet grass. The bold white letters looked smaller now, almost pathetic under the porch light. Lisa watched them file down the driveway, stripped of both authority and illusion. When the last man disappeared into the dark, Jack bent down and picked up one of the jackets, holding it like a trophy. "They'll think twice before coming back." Matt nodded, his eyes scanning the empty street. "But they will come back. People like that always do." Lisa's voice was steady. "Then we'll be ready." The wind shifted again, cooler now, carrying the scent of rain. Somewhere in the distance a dog barked, and the night seemed to settle, at least for the moment. But inside the house, all 3 knew this was just the first battle. The war with the HOA had only begun. The neighborhood was still. Too still. Hours had passed since the 6 men disappeared into the night, their blue jackets abandoned in the wet grass. The porch light still burned, casting a pale circle of safety on the front steps. Lisa sat by the living room window, her wheelchair angled toward the street. The rain had come and gone, leaving the asphalt slick and reflective. Now it glistened under the dim glow of the street lamps, empty of movement. Jack moved quietly through the house, checking each lock, each curtain. "All secure," he said, but his voice carried no relief. Matt was at the kitchen table, dismantling and cleaning the sidearm he'd kept holstered all evening. "They'll tell the board what happened," he said, sliding the barrel free, "and the board won't take it well." Lisa kept her eyes on the window. "Good. Let them know we're not afraid." Jack joined them, dropping one of the confiscated HOA jackets onto the table. "Fear isn't the point. They're going to come back, not because they think they can win, but because they can't stand losing." Matt nodded, reassembling the pistol with methodical precision. "And people like that, they don't fight fair." A sudden hum broke the silence, the low growl of an engine in the distance. Lisa's head tilted slightly, listening. The sound grew louder, then faded again, never passing the house. Circling, Jack muttered. Matt's eyes narrowed. Scouting. The quiet stretched again, but it wasn't the comforting quiet of peace. It was the coiled, waiting quiet of something plotting. By morning, the jackets were gone from the lawn. Someone had taken them in the night. No note, no sign of who it was, just the damp imprint left in the grass. Lisa wheeled herself to the end of the driveway, her brothers on either side. She scanned the street, every parked car, every drawn curtain. The normal suburban calm looked different now, less friendly, more like a stage where hidden actors were waiting for their cue. "They're watching us," Lisa said. "They've been watching since the moment they stepped on this property," Jack replied. Matt bent down, picking up a small object near the mailbox. A cigarette butt, fresh, still warm. "They were here not long ago," he said, his tone flat. Jack's jaw tightened. "They want us to know they were here." Later that afternoon, Lisa's phone buzzed with an unknown number. She didn't answer, but the voicemail came through seconds later. The voice was calm, almost pleasant. "We don't want trouble, Lisa. But rules are rules. We'll be seeing you soon." She replayed it twice before showing her brothers. Matt's knuckles whitened. That wasn't a warning. That was a promise. Jack took the phone, saved the message, and slipped it into his pocket. "We hold on to this. Proof. Leverage." Lisa's eyes hardened. "And when they come back?" Jack looked toward the window, scanning the street again. "Then we stop playing defense." That night, the three of them sat around the kitchen table. A map of the neighborhood spread out in front of them. Matt marked the likely vantage points, the cul-de-sac entrance, the tall hedge across the street, the utility pole by the corner. "They'll try something subtle next," he said. "Not a direct confrontation. Sabotage, isolation, make us look like the problem." Lisa tapped the table with her finger. "Then we get ahead of them. Cameras, lights, eyes everywhere." Jack added, "And we make sure every neighbor knows what happened here. Bullies lose power when everyone's watching." They spoke in low voices until midnight, the hum of the refrigerator the only other sound. Outside, the street remained quiet, but the feeling of being watched never lifted. Somewhere in the dark, someone was planning their next move. And in this neighborhood, war was no longer a figure of speech. It began so small, so ordinary, that most people wouldn't have noticed. But Lisa's brothers noticed. The morning after their long night of planning, Jack stepped outside to find the mailbox door hanging open. Inside, the daily paper was soaked through, pages pulped into an unreadable mess. The mail itself, gone. Matt checked the security camera footage. The street was dark, but at 3:17 a.m., a figure in a hoodie approached the mailbox, opened it, and lingered for several seconds before slipping something into their pocket. No face, no license plate, just a shadow moving with purpose. "They're testing our response time," Matt said. Lisa wheeled up beside them, her eyes sharp. "And sending a message. They want us to feel it first thing in the morning." Jack closed the mailbox with a snap. "We're not playing their game." But the game had already begun. By noon, Lisa's phone buzzed again. This time, a text from a neighbor she barely knew. "Hey, I heard the HOA is concerned about you violating multiple rules. Is everything okay?" Lisa read it twice before showing her brothers. Multiple rules. What rules? That same afternoon, two other neighbors stopped mid-stride when passing her house, whispering behind their hands before moving on quickly. Matt's jaw tightened. "They're planting seeds. If enough people believe it, they don't have to prove anything." Jack stood at the window, watching the slow trickle of pedestrians and parked cars that hadn't been there before. Surveillance, social pressure, classic intimidation tactic. Lisa's fingers tapped to the armrest of her wheelchair. "Then we need to control the story before they do." That night, the first real act of sabotage came. Matt had gone to take out the trash when he noticed a sharp smell near the garage. Chemical, sour. He followed it to the back fence, where a dark stain bled into the grass. A closer look revealed the source, a gallon jug of weed killer, upturned and empty, its contents soaking into the roots of Lisa's carefully tended rose bushes. "Deliberate," Matt muttered. Jack crouched beside him, examining the splash pattern. They didn't just pour it, they aimed for the roots. Whoever did this knows exactly what they're killing. Lisa, when told, said nothing at first. She just looked out at the garden she had spent years building, her expression unreadable. Then, quietly, "They think this will break me." The next morning brought something new. Anonymous flyers, stuffed into mailboxes and pinned to the community board. They were neatly typed, with the HOA logo at the top, and claimed that Lisa's property was in violation of safety codes and presenting a hazard to community aesthetics. No one had signed them. "They're fake," Jack said, holding one up to the light. "Not even printed on official paper." Matt tapped the logo. "Doesn't matter. People will believe it because they want to believe it." Lisa leaned forward. "Then we make sure everyone sees the truth. We hit them with facts, not fear." By evening, the brothers had installed 2 more security cameras, floodlights at the driveway and motion sensors by the back fence. But as they worked, they both felt the same unease, the sense that every move they made was being watched. Across the street, a car sat idling for 20 minutes, headlights off. When Jack stepped toward it, the engine roared to life and it drove away without a word. Matt said, "They're keeping distance now, waiting to see if we'll slip up." Jack replied, "We won't, but we're going to make them slip." That night, Lisa rolled up to the kitchen table where her brothers were studying the fake flyer again. "They're escalating," she said. "Yes," Jack agreed, "and they're going to push until one of us makes the wrong move." Matt leaned forward, his voice low. "Then maybe it's time we push back first." The 3 of them sat in silence for a long moment, the air thick with the unspoken truth. The first strike had been made, and it would not be the last. Somewhere in the darkness, the HOA was smiling, for now. The storm outside had calmed, but inside the Walker house, the air was charged with a different kind of electricity. Lisa sat at the dining table, the soft lamplight casting a warm halo over her determined face. Across from her, Jack and Matt leaned in, the quiet hum of the refrigerator the only sound between words. "This isn't just about us anymore," Lisa said, her voice steady. "If they've done this to me, they've done it to others. We're not just defending our home, we're drawing a line for everyone they've steamrolled." Jack nodded, his jaw tight. "Then we need to change the rules of engagement. We stop reacting and start setting the tempo." It began with a plan. Not a Navy SEAL raid, not yet, but a campaign of patience and precision. Matt brought out a legal pad and sketched 3 columns. Evidence, allies, leverage. "First," he said, tapping the page, "we collect proof of every violation they've made, every threat, every intimidation, cameras, recordings, witness statements, nothing sloppy." Lisa slid a small USB drive across the table. "Already started. That's yesterday's encounter, full audio, plus the neighbor's ring cam footage. You can see the HOA enforcement clowns shoving past the property line." Jack allowed himself a rare grin. "Good. We'll feed this into a timeline, show a pattern of harassment. That's Exhibit A." The next step was quieter, more dangerous. They reached out to neighbors, not everyone, just the ones they trusted. Mrs. Carter, the retired schoolteacher whose front garden had been bulldozed over a violation. The Martins, who'd been fined into near bankruptcy for repainting their porch without approval. Each conversation was held in kitchens and living rooms, voices low, blinds drawn. And each time, the brothers felt the shift, anger turning into resolve. By the end of the week, they had a small network. Not soldiers in uniform, but people with stories, documents, and a reason to push back. While Lisa coordinated the outreach, Jack and Matt played their other card, public opinion. They contacted a local reporter known for digging into small-town scandals. Over coffee at a diner, Matt slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside was a copy of the footage, witness statements, and the HOA's own contradictory bylaws. "This isn't just a dispute," Matt told him. "It's a racket hiding behind official-looking jackets and clipboards." The reporter's eyes narrowed, a slow smile forming. "If half of this checks out, you're looking at a front-page expose." Meanwhile, Lisa made a call to an old contact from her service days, a pro bono lawyer who'd handled veterans' rights cases. She explained, step by step, the harassment, the trespassing, the false authority. "You've got them on at least 3 counts," the lawyer said. "If they push again, let them. Every move they make from now on is a nail in their own coffin." It wasn't without risk. The brothers knew they were poking the bear, and the bear, cornered, might come out swinging harder than before. But that night, as the three of them sat together, Lisa in her chair, Jack with his arms folded, Matt nursing a cup of black coffee, there was something new in the room. Not fear, not even anger. It was momentum. The tide was turning, and for the first time, the HOA bullies didn't control the clock. The morning started deceptively quiet. A pale sun broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across the Walker property. Lisa sipped her coffee at the kitchen counter, her eyes drifting to the window. Something in the air felt off. Out on the street, a white van slowed to a crawl, stopping 2 houses down. Then another. Within minutes, 2 HOA trucks, plain white with HOA Enforcement, plastered in bold navy letters, rolled up in front of her driveway. Jack was already by the door when the first knock came. Loud, aggressive, deliberate. Bang, bang, bang. HOA Enforcement, open up now, a voice barked. Matt stood beside him, calm but coiled. That's not a compliance check, he muttered. That's an intimidation raid. Jack cracked the door just enough to see them. 6 men in the same blue jackets, hands on their belts like they were cops. Behind them, the HOA president, Greg Martin, stood smirking, sunglasses reflecting the morning light. "We're here to conduct a property inspection," Greg said, his voice dripping with fake authority. "Refusal will result in fines and—" "You step 1 foot on this property, you'll be trespassing," Jack cut in, his voice steady but loud enough for the cameras, both theirs and the ones Lisa had hidden, to catch every word. Greg smirked wider. "We'll see about that." He nodded, and 2 men moved forward. That's when the plan kicked in. From the side yard, Mrs. Carter appeared, phone in hand, recording. From across the street, the Martins, this time allies, not victims, trained their own cameras on the scene. "Smile for Channel 7, Mrs. Carter said loudly. "They love a good abuse of power segment." Greg's smirk faltered, just slightly. Inside, Lisa tapped her Bluetooth headset. "They're trespassing. Send the sheriff's unit now," she said into the mic. The pro bono lawyer had given them a direct line, but the HOA crew kept advancing. One of them brushed past the mailbox, stepping onto the property line. Matt moved like lightning, not touching the man, but blocking his path with the kind of physical presence only years of Navy SEAL training could give. His voice was low, almost conversational, but carried weight. "Step back, now." The man hesitated, glancing at Greg, who gestured impatiently. Then, sirens. 2 black and white sheriff's cruisers pulled up, lights flashing. The HOA enforcers froze. From the driver's seat of the lead cruiser stepped Deputy Rodriguez, a towering figure in mirrored sunglasses. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked, his tone neutral but edged. Greg straightened, trying to look cooperative. "This is HOA business. We're within our rights to inspect." Rodriguez held up a hand. "Unless you have a court order, you have no legal authority to enter this property, which means you're trespassing." Jack watched Greg's color drain. Around them, neighbors had started to gather, murmuring, phones raised. The story was spreading in real time. Matt stepped aside, giving the HOA crew a clear exit. "You heard the deputy. Off the property." Greg tried to rally. "This isn't over. You think you can—" Lisa wheeled forward into the doorway, her voice cutting him off like a blade. "No, Greg. You think you can hide behind a fake badge forever, but today you just exposed yourself to the whole town." The deputy turned to Greg. "I suggest you leave before I start writing citations." The standoff broke. One by one, the men in blue jackets backed away, avoiding the cameras. Greg lingered for a moment, his jaw tight, before following. As the trucks and vans pulled away, the crowd outside erupted in quiet applause. Not loud, not celebratory, but satisfied. Inside, Jack closed the door and exhaled. Matt leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. Lisa smiled faintly. "We didn't just win today. We set the stage for tomorrow." Jack nodded, already thinking about the next step. "Yeah, now we finish it." 3 days later, the HOA office was buzzing, though not with business. Greg Martin sat at his desk, staring at the front page of the county paper. His face, caught mid-scowl, was printed in full color under the headline, "HOA Abuse Sparks Community Outrage." The article detailed everything: the false inspections, the harassment of a disabled resident, the unlawful trespassing. Even the footage from Mrs. Carter's phone had gone viral on Facebook. Neighbors had shared it hundreds of times, and the local news had picked it up. For the first time, Greg realized he wasn't the hunter anymore. He was the prey. At the Walker house, the atmosphere was lighter, though no one was celebrating yet. Jack sat at the dining table, laptop open, scrolling through emails. "And we've got 3 attorneys offering to take the case pro bono," he told Lisa. "One of them is already drafting a civil harassment suit." Lisa grinned, her eyes sparkling. "I like the sound of that." Matt came in from the backyard, carrying a folder thick with printed screenshots. "Evidence package," he said. "Every threat, every letter, every fake citation they've sent since last year. We'll hand it straight to the sheriff's department and the attorney." Lisa wheeled over and placed her hand on the folder. "This isn't just for me. This is for every neighbor they've bullied." The next week brought a town hall meeting unlike any the HOA had ever seen. The community center parking lot was packed. Inside, folding chairs were filled shoulder to shoulder, and a low murmur filled the air. At the front of the room, Greg sat with 2 other HOA board members. His confident smirk was gone. In its place was a strained, tight-lipped expression. The meeting opened, but before Greg could start, Mrs. Carter stood and addressed the crowd. "We've all seen the video," she said, her voice carrying. "We've all heard what happened to Lisa Walker. This board has acted outside the law and outside basic decency." The crowd erupted in agreement. Another neighbor stood, holding up a copy of the county paper. "You've embarrassed this neighborhood. You've put us all at risk of lawsuits and higher insurance premiums. Enough is enough." Jack rose next, his presence commanding the room. "This ends tonight. We're calling for an immediate vote to remove the current board and hold new elections." The HOA attorney, sitting off to the side, tried to protest. "That's not on the agenda," but Matt stepped forward, his voice calm but unyielding. "We have the signatures to call a special vote right now, and you know the bylaws, majority rules." The attorney hesitated, then sat back down. Hands went up across the room, one after another, until almost every resident had voted in favor of removal. Greg's face was pale by the time the count was announced. It was over. 2 months later, the HOA was under entirely new leadership. Greg and his allies faced not just civil lawsuits, but criminal charges for trespassing and harassment. The county had opened an investigation into the misuse of HOA funds, and rumor had it that Greg might be facing time behind bars. Lisa's case became a local example of standing up to abuse of power. Her name, and her quiet strength, were mentioned in council meetings, church gatherings, even in the local Veterans Hall. One crisp autumn afternoon, Jack, Matt, and Lisa sat on the front porch. The air smelled faintly of wood smoke, and the street was quiet, save for the sound of kids playing down the block. Matt leaned back in his chair. "Feels different now," Lisa smiled. "Feels free." Jack sipped his coffee, gazing out at the street. "They thought they could intimidate us. They forgot. We don't back down." The 3 of them sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching the sun dip lower in the sky. The worst was behind them, but the bond between them had only grown stronger. Lisa glanced at her brothers and said softly, "Guess the Navy SEALs really do make good neighbors." They laughed, the sound carrying gently into the evening air. And somewhere in town, Greg Martin opened his mailbox to find the first of many court summonses. His own new chapter, written by the people he thought he could break. Justice at last had found its way home.